Everyone, it is official. Migration Queensland is now open for 2022-23 financial year. So 188 business visa, investment visa clients, as well as 491, 190 skilled workers, graduates. It is very good news for you. It is officially open right now. So Migration Queensland is accepting application. My name is Isuru Yapa. I'm a registered migration agent here from Sirus Migration, and I've got my lovely wife, Ashani Yapa, registered migration agent. So we just wanted to give you the breaking news and give you a bit of a feeling of what criteria is applicable and where we at, and what you need to be qualified to get your permanent residency through these requirements in Australia, in Queensland.
Yeah, so today we are going to go through each of the streams that's available in Queensland for skilled migration category, not the business category, and we'll have a look at and see what is the criteria, and if you believe you're eligible, please get in touch with us, because there was a information posted in there highlighted saying if you made a mistake on your EOI, even points, or if you gave wrong information, you have to wait for 6 more months before you can apply once again for Queensland. So it's very critical that you do it right.
Federal government only requires 65 points to be into 189, 190, 491 categories, but Queensland's now defined for 190 as last year. We need 80 points for 190 program.
Yeah.
And the biggest news is for the offshore clients, as expected. Offshore clients who's got more than 3 years work experience after your qualification now can apply for this category as well, 190 or 491. So we will go through each category.
First, I think I want to go through the graduates category. I think last year and the year before they didn't have a Queensland graduates pathway. Now they are open for Queensland graduates, which is great. So we will go through the graduates pathway now. So if you're a Queensland graduate of a PhD, Masters or Bachelor's is only available for subclass 491, but the rest of the categories are available for subclass 190 and 491 both. And the benefit of this is, if you're a Queensland graduate, you don't need to be working for your employer for 6 months or 3 months. So that requirement is not there, which is again great for our graduates who recently started working in their field or a closely related occupation. So I'll just quickly go through the features and the eligibility. The Migration Queensland criteria for Queensland graduates, so they are for high performing graduates, as they call it. And for subclass 190, you need to have 80 points or higher, and for subclass 491, you need to have 65 points. This is including the state point. So individually,
60 or 491 50 points by yourself, 190 75 by yourself.
Yeah. And also you need to provide evidence of employment within a employer registered in Queensland for their nominated occupation. And they do mention that it can't be, the employer has to have an office. So for 190 in a city or anywhere in Queensland, for 491 in a designated regional area, and it can't be a virtual office. So please keep that in mind, because we had people asking, if we are working from New South Wales for a Queensland employer, could it work? No, it can't work.
And also what it means, like if you're currently working from home but you do have an office in the city or office somewhere, that's fine.
Yeah.
As long as the employer has a physical office.
Yes. And the graduates needs to have proficient English, and there's additional criteria depending on what you studied. So
that's IELTS 7 in each band, or PTE 64 in each band.
Yeah.
Or higher.
And again, they say the invitations will go to the highest points, and there could be other criteria that they look at for different occupations. And also the highest point for different occupations also differ between the occupations. I want you to understand that. So for PhD graduates for 190 and 491, they don't need a job, which is great. So they can be fresh graduates without a job graduating from Queensland University and living in Queensland.
So you must have graduated within last 2 years, though.
Yes.
Your final thesis submission and the completion has to be within last 2 years.
Yeah, and also you have to have completed 100% of the PhD or doctorate at a Queensland-based institute. So from beginning to the end. Also, you need to have an occupation either on medium to long-term list, short-term list, or the regional occupation list, which means you need to have a skill assessment for occupation out of those through 3 occupation lists. So that's the PhD criteria. Now I'll go to the master's criteria. So again, applicant must be living onshore in Queensland, have 100% completed the master's by research or coursework at a Queensland-based university,
Yep.
have graduated in the last 2 years, and also have a skill assessment in a STEM field. So it has to be on a specialized field as well. I'll very briefly go through the fields. They're natural and physical sciences, information technology, engineering related technologies, and also the master's graduates, they need a job. So you need to be working full-time 35 hours minimum in a Queensland for a Queensland employer in your nominated occupation. But it doesn't say it has to be 6 months or 3 months, which is again the benefit of being a Queensland graduate.
So 6 months and 3 months category only applies for Queensland skilled work category.
Yes. Now I will go for the Masters 491 criteria. So again, living and must be living onshore in a regional Queensland area, have completed the Masters at a Queensland-based institute.
Doesn't have to be regional again?
Yes, but you have to be living in regional.
Currently, yes.
Yes. And graduated in the last 2 years, again have to have occupation, either MLTSS, short-term list, or the regional occupation
So pretty much
list.
all the list covers.
Yes, and again must be employed at least 35 hours in Queensland in the nominated or closely related occupation. So that's the Masters 491 criteria. Now we will go for the bachelor's criteria. Bachelor's is only available for 491 as a stream, though it's not available for 190. So again must be living onshore in regional Queensland, have completed 100% degree in Queensland-based institute, graduated in the last 2 years, have a grade point average of 5.5 or equivalent or higher in your bachelor's points.
So GPA has to be 5.5 or higher or equivalent. Some universities, we notice, like they go out of a different scale, but most of the universities go out of 8, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, and also you have to be working minimum 35 hours a week in regional Queensland, because this is for 491. And also there is another information, I think I found it very interesting as well, for labour hire employment, especially nurses. They work for an employer through a labour hire company. They said it's fine as long, but if you're doing that, you have to make sure the labour hire company is registered in Queensland according to the labour hire laws of Queensland, and also your employment reference letter should come from the actual employer that you're placed with, not from your labour hire company. So if you're working through a nursing agency for Blue Care, your employment reference letter should come from Blue Care, not from the labour hire company. So that's the information for that. And now we will actually look at the skilled workers living in Queensland.
That's the stream one we were talking about, graduates of Queensland. Now we're going to talk about people who's qualified and currently working in Queensland.
Queensland, yes.
So skilled workers in Queensland stream. Out of 4, this is the second stream that we're going to talk about.
Yes. Again, migration. I will go through the Migration Queensland. I think we are all quite familiar with the state government requirement. Hasn't changed. Still, you need 65 points. But for Queensland criteria, for subclass 190, you need 80 points or higher. For subclass 491, you need 65 points or higher. This is including the state points. And again, then you need to have an occupation on Home Affairs relevant list of eligible occupations, which is all 3 lists. So it's the combined occupation list.
Medium to
Again,
long
very
term,
good
short
news. Yes. Last year's it was not that big. It was very minimum, but this year again it's gone back to the whole list.
Another good news with this stream as well, if you're in short-term skill occupation list and you're currently in a 482 visa or a work visa that you're worried that your occupation doesn't have a permanent residence pathway, there you go. You can now participate in 190 or 491 category in Queensland, and you can get into permanent residency that way.
Yeah. And also for trade occupations, it's all right for you to have competent English. That's again another change this year. But for other occupations, you must have proficient English or higher.
So if you're an accountant, IT specialist, someone professional, then you must have proficient English or higher. Or if you're an accountant, if you're a chef, cook,
all the trades occupations.
all the trades, painter,
Carpenters, plumbers, all
motor
these
mechanic,
trades.
you can be you can just meet the minimum program requirement, which is competent English. If it's in IELTS, it's 6 in each band. It can be general, or if it's PTE, I think it's 36 or 50.
Yeah. So if you're lodging an expression of interest for subclass 190, you need to have been working for a Queensland employer for 6 months, permanent full-time, at least 35 hours, plus you need to have a 12 months contract. If you're applying for subclass 491, then you need to be working for a Queensland employer for at least 3 months, again permanent full-time, and have a 12 months contract. So this is the work experience requirement if you're a skilled worker living in Queensland. Now we will look at the also the business. The business that you're working in must have an office in Queensland. It can't be a virtual office. They need to be registered in Queensland and have an office in Queensland. And also there are some caveats applicable for different occupations this year.
Sorry,
not too many occupations. Accountant general, only applicants employed in an accounting firm will get an invitation, it says.
So if you're unfortunately if you're working for an example for an hotel as the general accountant, you won't be able to participate this time. I feel that's bit unfair, but there must be a good reason behind it.
I'm sure there is.
And then also you have to be CPA or CA qualified, or you're studying towards it. So that's a good one. If you if you're not CPA or CA, just get registered today and put your application, then that should be okay.
Yeah, and also there is so that was the caveat for accountant, but general. There is a caveat for internal and external auditors. So you must have a job as an auditor, not as an accountant.
So accountants and auditors have very common duties in between. So you must have external or internal auditor experience, and you have to be an external or an internal auditor job offer if you're going as an internal or external external accountant, auditor.
Auditor, yes.
You cannot be general accountant. And mostly the bachelor's degrees are very common, and it's pretty much the same. But just the work experience defines whether you're an internal auditor, external auditor, or a general accountant. That sort of depends on the job duties. So you have to go back into your job duties to go there.
Yeah, so you need to have a skill assessment as an internal or external auditor and a job offer, and you must have been working as an internal or external auditor. Majority of the
duties has to be an audit.
Yeah.
And the next one is for cooks and chefs.
Yes.
Cannot be working in, unfortunately, fast food or takeaway shops.
Yeah. And again, it says invitations will go to the highest points per occupation, and it is likely to vary for each occupation as well. As I said earlier, a highest point for a chef may not be the highest point for a nurse. So different occupations have different highest points.
Talking about the points, when we spoke to some of the clients lately, we found that some clients don't missed some of the points and they didn't understand the point table properly. So it is always good to have a chat to a registered migration agent to get a better understanding on where you stand and if there's any other way to improve or enhance your points. So
Yeah. So now we will move on to the next category, which is has been the
offshore plans.
yes, talk for a very long time. Now it's actually
It's
here.
been a few years since we did one of these.
Yeah. So skilled workers living offshore. Now Migration Queensland is officially open and they have their very own special list called QSOL, I think, Queensland Skill Occupation List.
It's always been QSOL.
Yes, and that is for the people who are living offshore.
Yeah.
And
So they combine education and employment together and put a new criteria. But the good thing is you don't have to be working in Queensland right now, so because you're offshore, but you need to have post-qualification experience to go get it.
So you need to have a point test of 80 or higher for
190.
subclass 190,
That's
and it
permanent
says
residence.
unless otherwise specified. So some occupations may be okay to go with less points because they critically need that skill in Queensland, or 65 or higher for 491. And then you need to have an occupation on the offshore Queensland skill occupation list. I think it's worth taking a look at this list.
Absolutely.
Go through a few occupations that's
Until
on
you load
there.
it up, I'll just go 190 and 491. The difference is 190 you're giving a commitment to state, you're getting permanent residency straight away, and you're giving a commitment to live and work in that state, whoever, whether it's Queensland or New South Wales, whoever's nominating you, you're giving a commitment that you will be living and working in that state for 2 years. Whereas if you get a 491 nomination through a regional category, where you also get 15 points on top of your current standing points, then you're giving a commitment to live and work in the regional area for 3 years. So pretty much live and work and you get your permanent residency after 3 years. So there's not, I mean, depending on your priorities and background, you don't have to stress that you don't get the 190 permanent residency straight away. It's 491 is a provisional, so it's just a pathway to permanent residency, but a lot more relaxed requirements.
Yeah. So there is this list, and also they have special requirements. So different occupations, some of the occupations have special requirements as well. So I will quickly go through few of the occupations: construction project manager, engineering manager, childcare center manager. So they're all the managers. ICT project manager, quality assurance officer, surveyor, other special scientists, urban and regional planner, civil engineer, geotechnical engineer, quantity surveyor, structural engineer, transport engineer, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, mining engineer, petroleum engineer, agriculture engineer. And if I go through to the special requirements, for some of the occupations it says you need to have minimum post-qualification work experience of 5 years, because the general requirement is you need to have work experience of 3 years, but some occupations need you to have
So
a
a
bit
few
more
caveats here and
yes, work experience. And so there are the engineers, there's biomedical engineer, engineering professionals not elsewhere classified, and then there's agricultural consultants, agricultural scientists, food technologists, geologist, geophysicist, biochemist, veterinarian, so I can't even read some of these, metallurgist. Okay. Early childhood teacher, primary school teacher, secondary school teacher, teachers of hearing impaired, teachers of sight impaired, special education teachers, optometrists, hospital pharmacists, retail pharmacists, dentists, physiotherapists, audiologists, special speech pathologists, midwives, registered nurse, community health. There's a lot of registered nurse
Ashani is
specialists
missing
available.
in between lines, so just in case if
yes.
don't depend
So
on this list.
it's not
because
the
again,
full list. It's such a big list. I think
So
if we
it's
go
just a
through the
very
whole
broad
list.
list.
Yes, and there's software engineers, developer, programmer, social workers,
We also saw,
agricultural technician.
locksmiths and
yes, and
what
then we
other-
will move down to the
metal
trades.
fabricators and
Motor mechanics, diesel motor mechanics, sheet metal trades worker, metal fabricator, pressure welder, aircraft maintenance engineer, fitter, turner, fitter welder, metal machinist, locksmith, vehicle painter, bricklayer, carpenter, joiner. So I'm very interested in looking at the requirement. So minimum English language is competent and minimum point is 75 for subclass 190. So this is for painter. So the normal requirement is 80 points, but for painters and most of these trade workers, they are happy to accept them at 75 points even, which is again really good news because
with the massive skill shortage right now, it's a very well constructed
I think so.
migration
Yes.
program.
So, and there are communication line workers, bakers, pastry cooks, butchers, chefs, cooks, landscaper, gardener, nursery person, hairdresser. Minimum requirement post-qualification work experience of 5 years. Minimum English requirement is competent. And it's only available for subclass 491, not for subclass 190. Then furniture finisher, cabinet maker, wood machinist. Yes. So as you can see, it's
As
a
for
very
offshore.
broad list, and all sorts of managers to engineers to technical people to trades workers. You are all welcome to Queensland, and each occupation has their own special little criteria as well. So if you are offshore and if you're interested in coming to sunny Queensland, have a chat with a migration agent, see if your occupation is on the list, as most of the occupations are there. And then now you can apply for expression of interest.
So that's for offshore clients. There's a broad list, and post-qualification 3-year work
3
experience
years
before
work
you can
experience, yes. So now I will quickly go through the application process.
apply. No, just before that,
Yeah.
491 SBO. It's
Okay.
been the fourth category or the fourth stream is if you have
Yes.
a skills assessment and full-time work rights, you have 2 ways to get qualified again without going through the whole point tested system. You can get yourself 50 points, and if you were to go into a regional area and if you bought a business by spending $100,000,
Yeah.
which is at least been established in that area for at least for 2 years, then you can operate it for 6 months, at least have one full-time Australian or citizen or a permanent resident, or 2 part-time Australian citizen or permanent resident working their successful operation after 2 BAS lodgements in 6 months. You can then apply for 491 small business owner category. Again, after 3 years working and living in that region area, 191 permanent residency. You get you can enjoy the benefits of free schoolings for your kids, and you get an interim Medicare facility for that as well. So 491 small business owner.
And also
in
there's a
Queensland,
startup category as
yes,
well.
was
Yes.
the best initially, and then later last year they came up with the startup category where you have to operate not 6 months. You can, without paying the 100,000, you can start your own business, operate it for two years.
Yeah.
Second year, you have to turn over at least $200,000 with $1 profit. That means it cannot be in a loss. The business has to be at least profitable.
Yeah.
Again, as long as it's in regional Queensland, the postcodes are widely available, or we can put it in the description of this video. You can be qualified. So the beauty about this one is you don't have to go through the point tested system a lot. I mean, you have to go through the point test, but majority of our clients in previous years, they've got the invitation with the right points, because
I think
you
if the minimum points, you should be able to
get it.
get an invitation. But there is a criteria clarifications for 2022-23. I will quickly go through that. The rest of the criteria hasn't changed, but so this is the change. So it can't have any vendor financing and no share transfers. Must have a contract of business sale. So it can't be a share transfer, it has to be a sale of a business when you're buying the actual business. cannot purchase a business from a family member. So it has to
Queensland.
be, yes, outsider. Cannot relocate or sell a business before receiving approval from Migration Queensland. So you have to keep operating this business for 6 months plus at least until you get the invitation. You can't really relocate the business or sell it. Cannot purchase a business previously owned by a 491 SBO applicant.
Ooh, that's going to hurt.
And commission agents, leasing agents and franchisers such as petrol stations and home-based businesses, including those with virtual offices, will not be considered. So it has to be proper business, can't be franchises.
So when the finance is, I own a business and I'm selling it to Ashani. So instead of she's paying me or she's going to the bank and getting money, I'm saying, okay, I'll charge you 5% interest and pay me after 6 months or 12 months. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So the seller cannot finance the deal.
Okay, and also it says applicant must operate their business for at least 3 years in a regional area and may be subject to monitoring after the grant of the visa. So after the grant of the visa, they may be monitoring you to make sure that you are trying or you are running this business actually. You just didn't buy it for the sake of the visa
Itself, because
Yes.
you're meant to go and start a business and develop the economy and also creating job opportunities for regional Australians too. So
Yeah. And now I think we will quickly go through the process of applying for a EOI for Queensland. So pretty much the process is all similar to all 4 streams. First thing, you make sure you meet the criteria of both state government and the stream that you're planning to apply for, whether it be 190, 491 graduate stream, offshore or 491 SBO. And then you lodge an expression of interest. Make sure if you say, okay, I completed my course, then you have a completion letter. And if you studied in regional or living in regional, you have proof of what you're claiming points for. Otherwise, you could
do
get
your
into
points,
trouble.
but don't forget you must have a skills assessment. That's the main thing.
Yes.
Less than 45 years of age, skills assessment, competent English.
Yeah, that's
the bare minimum.
Yeah. And then if you're eligible, then you will get invited. If you don't get invited straight away, you may get invited later because your expression of interest will go into a sort of pile of expression of interest and you may get invited later. And so if you get invited, then the next step is you need to upload all your documents. So Migration Queensland clearly said they are not going to accept any email documents or posted documents. Everything has to be uploaded. And then once you upload all the documents, then you have to pay a non-refundable fee of getting an invitation from Migration Queensland. Yes. And the next step or the step 5 is you will get an invitation, official invitation from Migration Queensland, and you have 60 days to lodge your visa application. That's where it's critical. If you claimed 80 points, you should have 80 points worth of documents to prove. If not, your visa can get refused. That's why they said if you make a mistake and if your points change or something, you have to wait for another 6 months before you can get an invitation from Queensland again. So, and in that 6 months, your visa could be expiring. So you have to be very mindful when you're calculating your points, especially for work experience, for regional studies, for Australian studies. They are the things I think people can mess up. Age and English, those things are easy, but there are some tricky areas where you can get your points wrong. And then, yes, so the last point again I want to highlight is make sure all the points you claimed you have evidence and you didn't give any incorrect information, because if not now, later on it'll come back and hurt you.
So that's it for 491 and 190, and we stick to 188 as usual. 188 is open. In Queensland, you only need 65 points. 188 is the business and investment visa. So there are few categories you already know. If you don't know, if you want to learn more, you can always go to YouTube and type Sirus Migration business visa, and you'll get to see a lot of videos that we produce on this. So as long as you have the age limit for business visa is 55. In certain exceptional circumstances, we can override it with the
In
state
Queensland?
governments. Queensland, it's hard,
Yeah.
but different states they do
Yeah.
it, like South Australia, NT. I think you got one
Yeah.
in NT last month. So in Queensland, it is a pretty straightforward criteria. There's no target sectors. You can come and enjoy the good weather with access to Pacific Rim quite easily as well. 65 points is all you need. Having turnover in the higher benchmark and the personal assets at that level, you can just meet 65 very easily. So if you like to learn a little bit more about business visa categories, again, call us, contact us through any of these contact details, and we'll be able to assist you in person.
So I hope we helped. It's a lot of information to take in, but if you're in Queensland or if you're offshore interested in applying to Queensland for 2022-23 financial year, get in touch with us. We are more than happy to help you. Now we're going to run and launch our
submitting.
EOIs, which
we had
we are
many
already
drafted,
working
but
on.
so it's all good. It's just hit, submit. So
Yeah.
good luck, guys.
All right, good luck. Hope the information was helpful.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
If you haven't subscribed to our channel,